Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. 2nd of November, 2025, and a smidge and a half after 11. Sorry for the slightly late start. It's not because the time has changed. It is because the change has timed. That's deep. It's deep, isn't it? That's what we do here. We just aim for Mariana-style Bonnie Blue depths. Now, welcome. This is normally going to be a subscriber show. We're going to make it an open show as a whole because there were some tech issues and I didn't want to have that kind of hiccup. So welcome. And I'm happy to take your questions. You can raise your hand to talk. You can type your questions in the text. And without further ado, somebody says, what do you think of confronting abusive parents? Or should you even try? Well, I'm sorry that question is in your life at all. That's tough, and I sympathize. So, I'm sure you are a smart person. We're all smart here, so I'm not going to say the obvious, if it's safe, if they're not violent or dangerous or whatever it is, trigger happy that way. But I think it's worth talking to people in your life who are abusive if you're close to them, right? And obviously, if you're sort of cheek by jowl or raised, twined together like trees in the forest with your parents, then I really think it's worth having a chat with them. Because you want to test wherever safe and possible. You want to test your theories against empirical reality. Really important. If I think I can sing, I record myself and I listen back. I get other people to listen and say, right? If I think I can have something of value to offer the world in terms of philosophy, I'll put it out there and get people's feedback and see how much good I can do in the world and so on. If I think I'm good at something, if I think I know something, you should put it to the test. It's very easy to live in fantasy land. Lord knows, as a creative writer, I do that on a regular basis. It's very easy to live in fantasy land. You don't want to stay there. It's okay to be there for imagination, but you don't want to stay there as a whole. Like if you have a good imagination, don't imagine writing a book. Write a book using your good imagination. So, if you have had abusive parents, let's just say they were verbally abusive, right? The best way to find out if someone's a narcissist, in my humble opinion, the best way to find out if somebody is a narcissist is to compare their behavior according to universal or ideal standards and see how they react. Compare someone's behavior to a standard. So if you've got a parent who says, don't lie, and then you catch your parent in a lie, you say to your parent, hey, you lied. And if the parent makes up something, gets aggressive, avoids, dodges, gaslights, and so on, then you're dealing with a very I say narcissist in a sort of colloquial sense, but you're dealing with a very selfish person. I'm reading John Cleese's autobiography, which came out, 2016, almost 9 years ago. And it is obviously a window into a very distant and much more civilized time where you didn't need quite as many stabby vests to take the public transit. But in it, he talks about being a teacher. So after he finished some education, he was a teacher for 2 years, and he said the children were happy, eager, fine, but you had to be fair, right? So he once wrote the word woolly on the board and misspelled it. WOOLLEY or something like that, right? And the kids said, hey, every time we misspell a word, we have to write it out repeatedly. Why don't you have to do that? And he's like, you're right. And he wrote out the word woolly 100 times, and he says, they accepted that honor had been restored, that things were fair, and also they accepted that, John Cleese accepted that he was never going to misspell that word ever again. So when you're in a relationship with someone, you want to compare their behavior to ideal standards, and we all fall short to some degree or another at times. And if that person says, thank you for the correction, I appreciate that, assuming they agree with you, then you're dealing with a healthy person you can actually have a relationship with. Because we can only meet in reality, and reality is objective. And if people reject objective standards, they're rejecting the possibility of any kind of overlap with another consciousness. It's all narcissistic. Like, you can't meet people in your nightly dreams, and you can't meet people if you avoid reality. And so you compare people's actions to ideal standards. Memory is faulty. Memory is not a photocopy. Memory is not a video camera. And of course, now it's different. Of course, you have everything's documented, but sort of the way that we evolved is you don't remember things. You don't remember things. You do remember. I'm not trying to gaslight you. Like, memory has validity, but memory is not flawless. And so you have a conjecture. You have a hypothesis. And the hypothesis is my parents can't take correction. Your parents can't take correction. Now, that's a theory. Now, you may remember countless instances as a kid, but the problem is when you're a kid, if your parents can't take correction, in other words, if they get angry and they escalate when you correct them, then you will stop trying to correct them. You may, as the teenage hormones hit, you may revisit that theory and you might yell at them, but it's all very fraught and it's already tense, all very, I wouldn't say hysterical, but very intense. So you have a hypothesis called, my parents can't take correction. You say, well, I didn't try and correct them too much as a child. That's probably because if they can't take correction, it's dangerous to correct them. And as a kid, you won't do that. Because as a kid, you don't want to piss off your caregivers, the people who bring you food and shelter, protect you from the elements and predators and so on. You can't piss off your caregivers. Like, if you're unjustly imprisoned, you can't piss off the prison guard who brings you your food. You have to, great joke. Oh, yes. Oh, lovely, right? So you have, as an adult, memories of a child where your parents couldn't take correction. And that's a hypothesis. And you say, well, but they couldn't take correction when I was a teenager either. But, teenage relations are often fraught and, hormones and the emotions are very strong. So it's a little tough to be objective about that. So you want to be just, right, and fair in your dealings with people. And to a fault, and I think this is sort of a British thing or sort of European thing, to a fault, I give people chances. There's pluses and minuses to that. I'll give people lots of chances. And that way, if they blow a whole bunch of chances, I don't feel any regret about ending the relationship. So you have a hypothesis which says, my parents are aggressive and my parents can't take correction. Okay. So then you think of something that you could correct your parents about. And trust me, everyone has things that they can be corrected about. So you go down and sit down with your parents, because now you're doing the philosophical thing. You're doing the epistemological thing. You're doing the scientific thing. Is you have an experiment. You have a hypothesis or a conjecture. You have a theory. My parents can't take correction without becoming aggressive. And you want to put that theory to the test. Again, assuming safety, right? Pull a gun on you or something. So you want to put that to the test, right? So when I did this with my mother, I had a theory that my mother could not admit fault. So there were things that I remembered that I had criticisms of, and I sat down with her on 3 different occasions. Very Christian of me. I sat down with her on 3 different occasions and attempted to tell her my perspectives and to say that she did something that was wrong. I mean, we don't need to go into the details, but let's just say that the hypothesis was amply confirmed. She could not admit fault. She could not take responsibility. She blamed everything and everyone else and all of that. And I used to be more mad about that. Now I just see that as a really tragically broken person who made choices not to heal, or, maybe there's so much trauma that you can experience as a child that it becomes functionally impossible for you to heal. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if science has confirmed that, and I'm not sure. It would never be ethical to test it, and I don't know if it ever will, but let's just say it's possible. You want to test your theories against the world. So if you sit down with your parents and you say, well, if I have an opinion or perspective, particularly on moral matters that differs from or opposes theirs, that they won't accept any correction, they will just escalate, gaslight, avoid, project, manipulate, and maybe just storm out or whatever it is, right? So you want to test your childhood perceptions of the volatility and self-abdication of your parents in this particular example to find out if you're right, just, and fair. And you maybe want to do it on more than one occasion. Again, I mean, obviously can't tell anyone what to do other than, be UPB compliant. But I can't tell it. So I don't know if you should or shouldn't. For me, 3 times was the charm. First time, maybe they're startled. Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they had a headache. Maybe they didn't sleep well. Maybe they've got a stomach ache, or maybe they're fighting a migraine. I don't know, whatever, right? It could be any number of things as to why they don't respond that well. First time round. Then you try it again. Second time, maybe the defenses have hardened from the first time. Maybe they're suspicious. Maybe whatever, right? Give them another break. Third time, if there's no change. I think mine was over maybe a couple of week period. If the third time there's no change, it's like, done. Done, sorted, done and dusted. Because you have tested your theory that your parents cannot take correction, that they only get manipulative and aggressive. Or, self-pitying, oh, I guess you're just the worst mother, cry, cry, cry. That wasn't what my mother did. She had a very cunning look on her face, like, okay, what can I get away with here? This is a new variable. What can I admit without getting in the fault or in the wrong or blah, 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 blah. So I think you do. You do want to check and see and validate your childhood experiences. If your parents are like really nice and friendly, it's a real theory. It doesn't happen, but let's say, then you'd have a reason to question your childhood memories. And if they were really friendly and helpful, tell me more. I want to hear more. Please tell me what your issues are. I'd love to work them out. And this is not what you remember. Then you can ask them, did you do therapy? Or how did this change? Or whatever it is, right? But you do need to find out the facts about your childhood. Now, we don't have time machines, but what you can do is you can go back. So you can revisit issues that you had as a child with your parents and find out how it is for you as an adult. I see you, Darth. So let me just answer another question because it's related, and then I'll take your question. Steph, I was raised by an abusive/manipulative mother and a detached, unambitious father who was also a victim of her abuse. No, he married her. He chose her, not a victim. How can I identify the damage or habits inherited from them and separate what is within my control, character choices, and reason? Finally, how can I live with equanimity without letting bitterness or resentment shape my future well-being and future relationship health? Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. So, yeah, your father's not a victim. Your father had legal independence. He was not forced to marry her. He had all the choices in the world. He could have chosen to not date. He could have chosen to date any other women. So he is not a victim. So the first piece of damage that I'm getting, which I say with sympathy, right? But the first piece of damage that I'm seeing is that you think that your father is a victim. Nope. Your father had a responsibility to protect you. And if your mother was abusive and manipulative, he had an absolute foundational responsibility to protect you from her. And whatever that took, that was what he had to do. So, damage or habits I inherited from them. So the damage is not in what happens to you. The damage is in what you justify and accept. I want to make this really, really clear. The damage is not what is done to you. The damage is what you justify and accept. So I knew a guy when I was younger who was really into some pretty horrifying music. And at one point showed me a thumbtack that he'd pushed through the ball of his thumb, ironically enough. And that's bad. Obviously, I didn't understand it. I was very young as a cry for help. But let's say that your parents poked you with needles when you were wrong or bad, right? When they perceived you as wrong or bad, they poked you with needles. Now, the needle's not going to kill you. It's not really going to leave any particularly lasting damage if it's just a little pinprick. So it's not that you got poked with pins as a kid. It's if you keep poking yourself with pins as an adult. In other words, if you say, well, whenever I displease others or myself, I deserve to get poked with a pin, pricked with a pin, then it is not, the damage as an adult is not the pinpricks when you were a kid. The damage as an adult is the pinpricks that you inflict upon yourself. So if you are called stupid by your parents, the damage as an adult is not that they called you stupid as a child. The damage is if you continue to call yourself stupid as an adult. Right? So the damage is what you justify and accept, not in what happens to you. And I'm not talking like extreme physical damage, right? I'm just talking sort of psychological or emotional damage. So what your parents say to you, in particular what they say, what your parents say to you, you internalize to protect yourself, right? So if your parents, like let's say you correct your parents and then they say, oh, you think you're so much better than us, and they get really hostile and angry. Well, you have to stop doing that. You have to stop doing that. You have to stop correcting your parents because it's very dangerous to piss off your caregivers, at least until you reach sort of teenage independence, like biologically programmed independence opportunities. So if your parents hammer you every time you correct them, then you will gain fear from correcting people. Obviously, right? So if you say to yourself, my parents were dangerous, I'm afraid of correcting people like my parents, but there's nothing wrong with correcting people. Like this is the rational standpoint, right? That's the rational standpoint. Let's say it again. Sorry to repeat, but it's really important. If your parents abused you for correcting them, and you say to yourself, okay, so they were dangerous, they had power over me, it provoked them when I corrected them. So I didn't correct them, and it's dangerous to try and correct people like them if they have power over you, but there's nothing wrong with correcting people as a whole, right? I mean, it's kind of essential, right? Well, then, again, I'm not saying that you wake up one morning totally damage-free, but you're no longer justifying it. You're no longer justifying what your parents did to you. You're saying, they're screwed up, they're immature, they're aggressive, they punished me for correcting them, or trying to. But there's nothing wrong with correcting people, so they did wrong, they did bad. And then you can begin that process of undoing that kind of damage, right? So identify the things that your parents said to you that aren't true. Recognize that the anxiety that you have around correcting people is a fear of your parents, but not a fear of the act of correcting people. There's nothing frightening about correcting people. There's only something frightening about correcting narcissistic, vainglorious a-holes who have power over you. So I think that's the, identify the language that got embedded and judge it morally. All right, let us get to, I'm sorry we lost the earlier caller. He kind of came and went. Starcat. If you wanted to unmute, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts.
Stefan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I was the one that asked the question that you were just replying to on locals. I've been a long time supporter. Listen whenever I can. I really appreciate all the clarity you've given my life. I had as I related earlier in my question, I had a pretty absent father. I don't believe I had one single serious conversation with my father growing up at all. He was very, he went to work. He was a pretty devout Christian person. He had his own struggles. I believe a lot of the distance was because of my very like type A personality, very abusive, manipulative, triangulating mother. Anytime you went against anything that she wanted, you knew there would be a serious repercussions. There'd be a cost, and you wouldn't know when that cost would have been paid. It could last for a long period of time.
Sorry, that cost would have been what?
Oh, you never knew
No, I just didn't hear the
when
word. The cost would have been,
the cost. You don't know when the debt would have been repaid to her in her
oh, the debt.
mind if
Okay,
you had
so
wronged her.
she might store up vengeance.
It might be months, might be a few days. She was also often physically abusive, but more it was emotionally gaslighting, manipulative, of trying to always create doubt within you. Like And I knew from a very early age, maybe pre-teen years, that something was off about her behavior toward me because I was a good kid. I had some really fantastic grandparents. I was a very good student.
Sorry, grandparents on which side?
My mother's side,
Wait, so you're saying that your
um,
mother's parents raised her to be this horrible?
yeah, I believe they were so good to me and tried to isolate me, because they knew they had created a monster.
But how could they be good people and create a monster?
Now that's a very good question. That's a question I've never been able to find any legitimate answers for,
Okay.
because they were fantastic to me, very loving, invested a lot of me. Everything I have in my life that I treasure is due to their nurturing and their attention and their support.
Do you know if they, I mean, this is not something you would know as a kid, but do you know if they counseled your father to get you away from your mother?
I'm not sure if they did. I'm not sure he would be capable of doing that in the first place.
Sorry, what do you mean he
Honestly,
wouldn't? Sorry. Was he
he's
disabled?
pretty.
Was he a paraplegic? What do you mean?
He's even to this day. I often have to give him money, help support him. I have as an adult, even though I have a 11 and a 14-year-old. I've often had to continue to bail him out of situations. My mother divorced him, stole everything from him in the divorce. They had a nice home. At least they had that, and she took everything in the divorce and kind of preyed upon his incompetence.
Oh, so
And
is he, I'm sorry to talk about your father this way. Is he just not smart?
um, I would say no.
Okay. It
I
happens, right? Yeah.
I mean, I'm myself. I mean, I'm like a 30-year, very successful neuroscientist, immunologist. Went to finish first in my class in graduate school, getting my doctorate. Always excelled in everything. Had the highest SAT score in the state of the year I took the test. I have, I'm pretty documented 160-ish IQ. Um, Always been very curious, very open, very, interested in how the world works and how the machine of life functions. That's kind of where my main curiosity drives. But early on, I'd say that at an age of 13 or 14, I knew something was off with the behavior. Like what I did didn't match her reaction. It was magnified. It was as if you couldn't even probably have a system of behavior where you could um, not be a victim of the abuse. And it all as almost if it didn't really have very much to do with what I had actually done. I was just an outlet.
Well, and sorry, this is to Ayn Rand's point that totalitarianism is not a system of fierce rules. It's a system of no rules. You don't know
Yeah,
what
that's
you can
very
do and not do. Yeah,
destabilizing.
yeah. Well, and
It's
that way, the random rules means that you can't ever catch the abusive parent on their own behavior.
Yeah, they try to provide an infinite number of excuses. I never accepted them, and my happiest day of my life was when I packed my stuff up and left. I mean, I guess secondary to my children to being born, but packing my stuff up and leaving is very close, and I'm very close to my children. Um, I guess in a way, he's trying to compensate for what I knew I did not have, and want to provide them opportunities. I could see what that environment cost me. I wasn't aware of it till later. Having you talked, I think recently about this terrific burden of having to figure everything out for yourself, and I mean that hit me like a ton of bricks. That stung me because I was working. I think my first job was cutting tobacco as a 13 or 14-year-old with 30-year-old men. I mean, that's not a job for a 13 or 14-year-old. It's pretty brutal. You get any of that nicotine juice on you, you immediately vomit. You have to wear gloves up to your elbows in brutal hot sun. And, I worked 2, 3, 4 jobs. The kids went to spring break during college. I went to work. I did construction. I framed, I did drywall, I painted, anything I could do to make money. It was really my motivation was to escape them. It drove me so and incredibly, but it's as if I didn't have a childhood. I was never free of worry about subsistence and existence. It was like I was an adult at 14 years old. I moved out on my own my senior year of high school. I had my own apartment. I felt as if either I left or I felt as if my survival was at stake in some way. And I know it's left some impact on my personality that I've had a very hard time to shake. It's left a harshness within my personality. Um, like I don't want to hear excuses. I want people around me to be productive and be held accountable. I have a very short, maybe tolerance for not being held accountable for your actions or what you earn in life because I had to work so hard for what I had. Um, and it also at the same time gave me a lot of strength. Um, I'm not very like easily taken from my goals, but I'm not so sure that I know that's not perfect. That it would have been better to have some kind of happy median. I often find myself not so willing to enjoy the fruits of the labor that I have now. I'm 51 years old. I have a $200,000 a year job that I've had for 10 years. Um, I've I've created some sense of stability, but my main concerns are still like overwhelmingly the care of my children. Yeah, I can't really shake like, well, I got to save money for them. I got to have a down payment saved for their homes. I have a really hard time, like maybe focusing on myself being able to enjoy life.
Listen, I'm really, really sorry for all of this, and I agree with you that it was a survival mechanism to get out your senior year of high school. I don't want to interrupt if there's more that you want to say.
And I garner a lot of insight from the call-in shows. I feel that maybe individuals from our generations, there's certainly like there's certainly some like central themes to what we've experienced. I think maybe centrally it's a significant neglect in that having to figure out everything on your own. I think like, wow, I never once had a serious conversation with my father about anything to do with like girls or jobs or wisdom or how do you apply for colleges. I probably could have gotten into a lot better college than my local state school based on my performance, but my life was so utterly chaotic
Mm.
that I just took the opportunity that was simple and I thought I could execute. And then I got lucky that I met some professors in university who saw some promise in me and they actually paid for my GRE, my MCAT. They actually gave me money to move to, pack up my belongings, a down payment on an apartment. Um, I mean, I'm very, very thankful for all the assistance that I've gotten from others, but that has largely been outside of my family. And my parents are in their middle 70s and of not good health. And I don't talk to my mother. I was divorced about 7 years ago. My ex-wife was also just totally indifferent to anything that I needed emotionally. I was just a wallet to her. She told me once that if I married a graduate, I thought they'd made more money. Um, and I was making like $150,000 a year and paid for her to go to nursing school, and she had a decent career, so I thought we were doing pretty good. And I was doing what I wanted to do with my life, so I didn't really care what she thought of it because it's my life, and I have to get up and go to work every day, and I think I'd earned to spend the time of my life, like, doing something that I thought would be beneficial to humanity, like figuring out what caused people to be in pain or be sick. I thought I could meld what, my curiosity was with something where I could benefit others and enlighten others and teach others how the scientific method and how to think critically and how to solve problems. I thought, that's a decently noble. I wasn't completely selfish with my intelligence. Um, what I own several businesses on the side too to make money, which I just enjoy. And she lied to the police and told them that I had hit her. The police didn't believe her. It didn't come to anything, but I thought that was like an absolute betrayal, you know. And now she goes and spends a weekend at my mother's house, and that utterly crushes me. That
Sorry, your ex-wife currently goes to spend weekends at your mother's house?
correct,
Okay.
and that
And this is the mother of your children, right?
yes,
Okay.
and that that someone would betray me in that way and trying to get me arrested or in my career. You can imagine in academia what a domestic violence charge would do to your job security and your prospects. She was just mad. I divorced her and it damaged her ego, and so she took that out on me. Wasted a lot of the resources for the children in the divorce as well, just by causing us to repeatedly go to court. So every time you go to court, costs like $5,000. So, and of course, you can guess who paid the lawyer bills. Myself. And so yeah, that and now that that she's spends time with my mother, that even further creates some like distance for me. That's just something that I just will not tolerate and cannot tolerate. I would damage my self esteem to tolerate something. I demand loyalty from my blood kin. Um, I I just I don't know if that's something you completely would agree with, but that's like my core feeling about the situation is that's nothing I wouldn't even discuss. Um, I'd be willing to take my children there, for us to spend time together. Um,
Sorry, take your children where?
to my mother's for them to visit. If
What? Why?
yeah, I
Why?
know
Why?
the children, the children, like her. She's very charming. She can be very charming to outsiders.
Yeah, but you're don't tell me that. You're not an outsider.
Yeah, I know. It would. Yeah, I mean, maybe she knows that perhaps that's the only way she's going to see the children. That's a possibility. You know, it
No,
certainly
but
wouldn't.
I mean, from what you say, she's a pretty destructive and horrible person, right?
Yeah, she's a screamer and a.
So why are your children there?
But they weren't there very often when they were with me. So,
Sorry, I thought you just said that you wanted to or were going to take them to see your mother.
well, I had Stefan.
Oh, but you don't anymore?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. And when did they last see your mother?
Um, well, a couple weeks ago with the ex-wife.
Oh, your ex-wife. Yeah, because you don't have any control over what happens when she has them, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. But when was the last time that you took your kids to see your mother?
6 years ago.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. Sorry. I thought you were still doing that.
I was unclear.
Okay. No,
I was
that's
unclear,
fine.
Stefan.
That's fine. I'm sorry. I have some thoughts, but I'm happy to. I'm say happy. I'm willing to hear more.
Well, maybe some questions might help draw some thoughts out from me if you had some thoughts of the experiences.
Well, you said, and I agreed with you for what that's worth. You said very emphatically you can't stand people who don't take responsibility, right?
No,
So, and you can't stand people who make excuses.
No, I would have ended up in a trailer park or in a ditch if I had done the same for myself.
So why do you make nothing but excuses for your father? And why do you accept him taking no responsibility?
Because he's nice.
No,
I know, but
that's not a
I know.
standard.
I'm struggling with this right now.
I know you are, and that's why I
I
want to talk
know.
about it.
I haven't been talking to him. I didn't send him a for the first time, I did not send him a gift for his birthday. Um, I haven't seen him this year. He lives about an hour or so away. It's always if we're gonna see each other, it's always gonna be me going to him, even though I work 60 hours a week and
I
have 2
thought you
children to
said, hang
raise.
on, hang on, hang on. I thought you said he was nice.
Well, he's pleasant.
No, no,
I mean, he doesn't
I
scream at
thought you
me.
said he was nice. Does a
Well, he
nice, okay, how long ago did you get divorced again?
7 years?
And how old were you when your parents got divorced?
21?
Okay. So what has your father done to lighten your load and your burden?
Nothing. Nothing ever.
How the fuck is he nice?
Yeah, I know.
No, you don't know. You just told
Well,
me
I
he was
feel
nice. Don't gaslight me, bro. Come on, let's not do that in the
I'm not.
conversation. Don't fucking spin me around like that, okay? I really want to help,
Got
but you
you.
can't pull that shit.
Well, I'm just telling you what I
No,
this
no, slow
the
down, slow
struggle I
down, slow
feel.
down. You need to hear my objection, right?
Yes, sir.
Uh, you said he's nice, he's pleasant, right? And then I said, how is he nice if he doesn't support you when you're in great need post divorce?
He
And you
can't.
said he doesn't. And I said, so that's right. And you said, and I said that that's not nice, right? And then and you said, yes, he's not. And so you can't go in the space of, 10 or 15 seconds from he's nice to he's not nice without even noticing that, right?
Oh, I notice it.
Okay, well then acknowledge it because it's really disorienting for the other person, right?
Yes. I understand it. It's just I feel like a bad person for maybe abandoning him, even though he's abandoned me. It's pretty
Okay,
common.
let's go back to the logic here, right? Mr. 160 IQ, which I fully
I get
accept.
it.
Maybe more. Could be more. I'll struggle to keep
Mhm.
up. So
No.
I said, you said I can't stand people who make excuses and don't take responsibility, and all you do is make excuses to your father and accept that he's not responsible. And I said, why is that? And you said, because he's nice and pleasant. And then I said, but he's not if he doesn't support you. And you said, no, he's not, right? So this is all crazy tangled, right?
But if he's incapable due to, low cognitive function, um, or his own challenges.
Okay, so let's talk about his low cognitive function. So, what are the indications? Are there any indications that he might not have a very low cognitive function?
Yes, he was an air traffic controller in the Air Force during Vietnam.
Oh my God, bro. What are you doing to me?
He was,
No, come
treated
on,
with a
come on, come on, come on.
now I have a caveat here,
Okay.
Stefan. Um, he had a severely traumatic experience where he was manipulated by a woman who married him, but at the same time, she was still married to another man while he was in serving in the Air Force, and he was subjected to electric shock therapy. And
Okay, we don't have to get into specifics if you don't mind. So, okay,
yeah,
so he had
gotcha.
electroshock therapy, and is your perception that he thus lost IQ?
Yes.
All right, let's have a look. Could be, could be, could be. Let's see here. Um, all right, I had a family member who went through that. All right, does electroshock therapy cost IQ points? Now, it's not a certain answer on all of that, but let's see.
Correct.
Boom, boom, boom. It's quite a, so I guess he was kind of depressed, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said a woman manipulated him and this and that and the other, but he screwed a married woman, right?
Well, he didn't know.
How do you know?
He told me he didn't know
How do you know?
because they were married.
Who was married?
My father and this woman had gotten married, but she was already married to another man.
Okay, got it. All right, so let's see here. So tests like the modified mini mental state examination show short-term impairments in executive function and processing speed, but these normalize within 14 days, often improving due to
Okay,
reduced depression symptoms. No immediate IQ drop is observed in studies using standardized intelligence tests.
okay,
In a study of 32, not a big sample size, in a study of 32 older adults with depression, WAIS-R and NART scores remained stable from baseline through 1 month post-ECT, despite improvements in mood. Intelligence was explicitly described as unaffected by the treatment. A meta-analysis of long-term effects confirmed no deficits in non-memory cognition, attention, executive function beyond 14 days, with some domains like processing speed improving. One recent meta-analysis noted persistent issues in overall cognitive function and learning when used a specific ECT-focused battery, although executive function improved and IQ wasn't assessed. So it doesn't look like
okay.
there's much support for IQ drops from ECT. Okay, so he got married to a woman who was already married and hadn't told him.
Correct.
And he was intelligent enough to be an air traffic controller, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's say here, what is the average IQ of air traffic controllers? Let us see. I assume it's, I would assume at least a standard deviation above the average, probably more.
Mhm.
Let's see.
All of his brothers are also highly intelligent
Well,
people.
I'm
They're
you and your
engineers,
mother and right.
and my grandfather was also um, he was a pretty high up executive at IBM post World War II.
Right.
He was successful.
Mean IQ of 110.5, several hundred US. This is the 1960s, several hundred US air traffic controllers. You said he was in the Army, right?
He was in the Air Force
The
in
Air Force.
Vietnam
Okay.
from 70 to 73.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, not quite a standard deviation above, but certainly smarter than your average bear. And again, this doesn't mean that this is what's his IQ. I mean, but that
Yeah,
probably is a kind of minimum.
I would say that's, he has some interest in cosmology, astronomy, scientific subjects that, and while not classically educated in any of those domains, he still has a decent comprehension of them and can self-educate to some degree.
Right. And I assume air traffic controllers, this is an average IQ. I assume that the spatial reasoning, what about the spatial reasoning would have to be really high for air traffic controllers. I'm just going to see what they, because I assume that's one thing that they would specifically be testing for is your spatial reasoning.
Mhm.
Very high. Looks like 6.4 out of 7, which is very high. Okay.
So you gotta be able to make, the correct decision in a short period of time under stress and be confronted with a significant amount of information at once.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no
yeah,
way
for
you can
sure.
be stupid and or incompetent generally and
Yeah, so it looks like they're in the
pass that
top. Yeah,
school.
they're in the top 20% of spatial reasoning. And that's it's very good.
Well,
If
what
there
else would you think would be the contributive reasons for his lack of ambition and indifference when getting out of the Air Force? He never um, like pursued a job as an air traffic controller. He drove a truck,
Mhm.
like a local delivery truck,
Right.
not an 18 wheeler across the road. And he was never really interested in being like motivated to be a provider in any way.
Oh,
Like we
sorry,
were
but
really
who
poor
provided
and suffering.
who provided for your family when you were a kid?
My grandfather, my grandmother,
Oh,
they bought my family home so I could go to a decent school. Um, I even found my Christmas presents hidden in the shower, and the receipts on them were taped. The receipts were taped to the presents. They were signed my grandfather's name. So even the presents that I received on Christmas morning that were supposed to be from Santa Claus were actually purchased by my grandfather.
right. Okay. Okay. So, was your father good looking?
It was decent looking, yes.
Okay. And what about your mother and the woman he married? Were they above average attractiveness when they were young?
My mother was overweight.
Oh, when your parents got together?
Um, she was attractive, but still overweight, I would say. That's
Okay.
something she's battled with her whole life. I think that's one of the central, like maybe core areas that where insecurity stems from. I mean, she hated my success, Stefan. I mean, she utterly hated it. She would have been so much happier if I was broken and poor, if I was still under her control. I'll tell you one of the central things she ever said to me it didn't shock me. On the day I was hooded at Vanderbilt, where you had worked 6 years, published some really nice manuscripts. I made faculty in like 2 years from being a postdoc. I was very productive. And the day I got hooded, which is a big ceremony, and you could have all the regalia, and it's very fancy. She told me, "Don't get too high on yourself. You're not a real doctor."
Right.
And she said
Yeah,
things
listen,
like that
bro,
to me constantly.
you don't need to sell me more on your mom being a bad person. So I get that. I understand that. But you seem to be pretty conscious of that. So why
Mm,
was your father so wretched at choosing women? Why was he just terrible at it?
that's a great question. I know he's about 8, 10 years separated from the rest of his brothers. I know he was like a very young um, in his family, like a late child, and his father passed away when he was younger than the age of 1. He had been gassed in World War I and had died from complications due to damage to his lungs. He had died of tuberculosis. And, I know my father told me a few times he had struggled with, and was quite alone because his brothers were so much older than he was, and his father had passed, and it was very stressful for his mother. But I don't know exactly. I mean, again, that's like an
Okay,
excuse.
did he come late to Christianity in his life?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so did you ever ask him or did he ever give any indication what he was looking for or how he chose the women in his life?
No.
Okay. So that's
We
cruel on him, right? If you make a bad decision, if you make bad decisions as a father, you owe it to your son to do what?
make sure he doesn't replicate it.
Right. Say, here's the mistakes I made. Here's the things I looked for that weren't there. Here's the things I looked for that were there that were bad. So you don't repeat the same mistakes. How the fuck did you end up marrying the mother of your children if your father married your mother? It's his job to make sure you don't do that.
He doesn't care. I mean, he's either incapable of caring or he doesn't care. Um,
So you know what a
and I would
circular
have to
argument
say
is, right?
I know.
So if I say, why didn't your father care to prevent you from making his mistakes, and you say he doesn't care, you're not adding anything to the topic, right? And also giving him excuses. Well, his father was gassed in World War I and died, and his brothers were
Mhm.
older. That's not causal. Come on, man. We're free will people here, right? That's not
I
causal.
understand. And maybe I know the answer, I just don't want to accept it.
I don't know. Because I'm just talking to you for the first time. But, with all due respect to, this is a difficult topic, it's mostly bullshit that you're giving me because you say, I can't fucking stand excuses. Here are all my father's excuses.
Well, I have people in my life questioning that I'm harsh. I'm too harsh.
So,
I don't wanna talk to my father. I don't wanna deal with them. Um, it disappoints me when I think of it. It's destabilizing to what I have going on in my life currently when I think of these things, and I feel like, maybe you start to have feelings of self-doubt, like you weren't worth their time, or you're not good enough, or what's wrong with you, or what part of this dynamic are you responsible for? And it's easier to just admit the fault yourself, because at least you can do something about it, or at least you question these things and you can act on making improvements or adjustments or being more selective in your personal relationships, than it is to try and convince somebody else they need to change, that it's obvious they're never going to. And you still feel this void, this loss. Okay, I don't have a father. I don't have this central um, core figure in my life. Well, I've been blessed with others. Um, I have other relationships, and these men my age or 10 years younger than me that is sort of in my circle. They have these like really nice family dynamics um, that I wish I would have had, or I feel awful alone sometimes. I don't have anyone to
well,
turn
of
to
course
that.
you're alone, bro.
Yeah.
And I say this with great sympathy, but you're not alone because of your bad childhood, and you're not alone because of your bad parents.
Okay.
Why are you alone?
Choice,
Well, doesn't add anything. Why are you alone?
fear,
What's the
or
causality?
what are your thoughts?
It's not, I know why you're alone.
Well, tell me. I'm not so
You're
sure.
alone because you're stuck between two worlds, the fucked up world and the healthy world.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you won't let the anchor go.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get to the surface. You won't
Yeah.
come to a conclusion. You won't make a decision. After half a century plus of knowing this family, you won't listen. And I say this with respect, right? And I say this with sympathy, but I'm going to say it blunt because
Please.
good people don't want to be around these sad stories. It's depressing. And you
Yeah.
have these sad stories, but they're still being provoked within you,
Yeah.
right? They're still around you.
Uh-huh.
You took your kids to see your mother 6 years ago, right? And I know that,
Mm-hmm.
that your ex-wife, and I get, but your father, you're still making excuses for him.
Yeah. Well, in my own mind, I really do not, but I have others in my life who,
Okay,
um,
bro, Jesus. I mean, you tell me how blunt you want me to be. 1 to 10.
100.
100. Okay. You are so full of contradictions that it's kind of crazy making to talk to you about this topic. I'm sure when it comes to your work and other things, you're perfectly reasonable and rational. In fact, stupendously so, I'm sure. But it's all so twisted up,
Correct.
right? Because
Well, I struggle with
you
it.
made all of these excuses, and now you're saying, well, I don't give him excuses. You say, well, he's not smart. Well, he was an air traffic controller. Well, he had electroconvulsive shock therapy. Well, I've never looked up whether that has an effect on IQ, right? It's all so convoluted and confusing.
Mhm.
And so this is the heaviness, because I can hear the heaviness in your voice. The lack of animation, the lack of spontaneity, you're carrying a burden, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's a burden called bullshit. And I say this with sympathy. I'm not saying that you're consciously trying to lie or anything like that, but it is ridiculously convoluted from the outside.
It's convoluted on the inside too,
Okay, well,
Stefan.
that's what philosophy does, is, straightens things out, right?
It's the fear in me of, like, having nothing. My grandparents are gone. If I cut off my mother and father, then I don't have a biological family.
What are you talking about? You have children.
Correct. I mean, my origin biological family.
Okay, that's not your family, bro. That's your parents' family. Your family is your children.
Yeah, and
Your
that's
parents'
fantastic.
family is where you came from because
Yeah,
they made all
that's
the choices and you didn't make any of the choices. I'm not saying they're not a real family. I get all of that. But it's
mhm,
your parents' family is defined by their choices. Your family is defined by your choices. And they're not the same. One is where you just happen to be born.
mhm.
Right? It's not your family. You just happen to be born there. The family that you have with your kids, that's a choice that you made. You chose to date, get engaged to, get married, have children with their mother. You chose to become a father. So that's all a reflection of your choices.
Yes. I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And also what may another contributing factor that's really kind of stung me is growing up. I was always made the scapegoat for their failures, as like they didn't accomplish in life what they wanted to because they had to take care of me. And I always thought that was total crap.
Sorry, your parents said that.
Correct.
So your father said that.
Mostly my mother.
So your father said that.
Correct.
Come on, bro.
I know.
Come
You're just
on.
probing at something I don't want to accept
Come on.
in its weakness, and maybe that's why
No,
it
no,
bothers me
no, that's
more.
not weakness.
Not being willing to accept the reality.
That's not weakness. That's sadism. To say to your kid, the reason I'm driving a truck is because your ass came into my life. The reason I never made anything of myself is because of you kids. That's fucking
Well, having my
sadistic.
own children, I can't. I mean, it became more horrific once I had
Okay,
the
bro, you
emotions
hang
about
on,
my own
slow
children.
down. Is anything that I'm saying having any emotional impact on you at all?
Yes,
Because you just
of course.
I don't get a sense that anything I'm saying is having any emotional impact. Now, it could be because what I'm saying has no emotional impact and isn't relevant or whatever. But you went from my dad's a nice, pleasant guy to he blamed me as a little kid for his failures in life.
Well, I guess he's nice and pleasant compared to my mother, who was a screamer and a striker and a hitter and a scratcher and
So that's better. Your father was worse in some ways because your mother was more obvious.
everything you're telling me is are thoughts I've had in my mind many times before. I've just struggled with the acceptance of what that means.
What do you mean? What that means?
That means I never talk to my father again.
You're not talking to him now. You said
I talk
you got no advice and you've never had a real conversation with your parents. Well, I mean, I'm sure it's
You're
like some
right.
guy with a hand puppet saying, well, I can't put down the hand puppet, then I'm all alone.
Yeah, I know it's performative. It's not real. I acknowledge that.
No, but
I've known
it's
that. There is
costly. Hang
it
on.
is nothing there.
Fake relationships are costly because they keep
Please.
the real ones away.
Mm.
Let's say, okay, what's your favorite female name? Let's do this. What's your favorite female name?
Amelia.
Amelia. Lovely name. All right. Amelia comes along, and Amelia is smart, wise, mature, together. She's gone to therapy. She's ironed all this stuff out,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And Amelia starts chatting with you because you're a hot, lithe neuroscientist dripping in Minotaur oil or something like that, right? And she's like, wow, this guy's, man, he's smart. He's a good earner. He's a good dad. Maybe there's something here that we could explore from a romantic standpoint, right? Now, Amelia starts talking to you, and all this stuff starts coming out. What does Amelia think?
It's dysfunctional,
Okay,
or it's
keep going.
it's unstable. That I have issues that are unresolved. It would negatively impact our future relationship and progress of building a substantial life moving forward. Unresolved issues that I need to address before I can embrace a healthy relationship in the future.
Your job is to pursue and capture the truth and reality, right?
Yes,
So it's not like you don't know how to do that. If you perform, I don't know what you do and don't give me any details, but as a scientist, if you perform an experiment and the results are kind of contradictory, do you just gloss over it and keep going, or do you have to sit down and resolve those things?
you repeat it to have clarity. You
Okay, let's say
iterate
you still
until
keep
you're
getting contradictory results. Do you just say, well, I'll just keep moving on. I'll publish. It's fine.
you adjust your experimental design.
Right. You have to resolve those contradictions
Correct.
because you can't publish contradictory results, right? Like
No, you
if
have
I
to
if I
tell a
go to
coherent
investors and
story.
say the business is going to simultaneously make and lose $5 million next year, what would the investors say?
No, thank you.
Yeah, like if I'm sorry, you're not in reality, right?
Hmm.
And if you say my father is a cruel, nice guy who's mentally deficient, but also is an air traffic controller, who I give endless excuses to, but I hate excuses, who
Hmm.
I don't hold accountable, though I hate people who aren't held accountable, but I love my father, but by every standard I hate my father, blah, 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 right?
You're absolutely
There's
correct.
no room there's no room for someone else in that level of self-contradiction. There's no room for anyone else because you're just fighting with yourself, and there's no room for anyone else.
It's damaging
Yeah.
for sure. It is. I acknowledge that.
So
It has been something I've struggled with.
your parents wanted you to fail.
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
They tried to um they tried to invoke my failures. Sometimes they'd promise to help me some in college, and then my mom be like, "Oh, it's okay. I know you're busy with studying. This month I'll help you pay the rent." And then 2 days before the rent was due, she would say, "No, I'm not going to give you any money."
sure. Again, you don't need to sell me on the bad parenting, but that's fine. Okay. So your parents want you to fail because when you blame your kid for your own failure, you're setting your kid up for failure.
Correct.
Okay. So your parents want you to fail. How are your romantic relationships going?
Pretty well. I mean, my marriage was 10 years. I have two beautiful children out of it, even though,
Okay, you cannot quote your marriage as a success. I mean, obviously it's great that the kids are here, but
yes,
if your wife is trying to get your ass arrested and thrown in jail and bleeds the family finances dry with lawfare, that's not a success, right?
no.
Okay, so what's happened since?
I'm remarried now.
Okay,
Um, it's um, it's okay. It's not perfect, but
say not
it
perfect is a useless statement, right?
yes,
I mean, I didn't even know what perfect would be. It's like saying, well, my uncle didn't live to 500 years of age. It's like, well, okay, why are you saying that?
yeah.
Nobody lives to 500 years of age, right?
It's good, Stefan.
Okay. And what does your wife think of your contradictory thoughts about your father?
She thinks I'm a bad person for abandoning him.
So she sides with your father and condemns you.
Correct.
I thought you said that loyalty was the key thing for you. Did I misunderstand that?
No,
Is she being loyal?
no,
Are you guys Christians?
I'm Catholic.
Okay, so yes,
Yes.
you're Christianity the original. Okay, and is your wife
Well, I've
religious?
I've lived a significant part of my life as agnostic, I would
Okay, I
say.
get that. Sorry, I mean I understand that. Did is your wife religious?
No.
Okay. Did you guys have vows, something to do with we are one flesh, to have no
Yes.
others before you, and so on, right?
Yes.
Okay. By putting your father above you and siding with your father outside the marriage against you, is she fulfilling those vows?
No.
Okay, so you just need to you can nicely and kindly remind her of that and say, the basis of our marriage was that we put each other first. You are siding with my father against me. That is an act of infidelity. That is like cheating on me. And you don't have to be mean or harsh, but just, sometimes people just need to be reminded of their promises. Like if you lent $100 to a friend and he forgot about it, he just needs to be reminded. Oh, hey, you remember you said you'd give me that 500. Oh, I'm so sorry. Right. Just you can be nice about it and just say, um, you you're siding with my father, who was not a good father.
Mhm.
Because he chose my mother, and it would not at all surprise me, though I have no particular proof. Of course, it would not at all surprise me if your mother had done things to sabotage your marriage by talking to your ex-wife.
I
But
think I
I'm
think
sorry.
maybe some I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think some of the maybe reasons why she does that is because her situation with her father, I see, is there's some, um, consistency.
Okay, for a guy who doesn't like excuses, what happens every time?
I provide caveats that
Okay,
are
so you don't want to
excuses.
use the word
Yeah.
excuses. You'll say
Okay,
caveats.
excuses.
Okay, so as long
Yeah,
as we use a synonym
excuses.
for the word
Yeah.
excuses, it's not an excuse. Perhaps we could just switch to French. Excusez-moi. Okay,
Oui, oui.
right. So listen, and so we can say there are reasons without providing excuses, right? So I can say, listen, the reason why I'm so focused on self knowledge and reason, rationality, is because I grew up raised in a culture and with people who opposed rationality and self knowledge, and it was hell on earth. So that's a reason,
Absolutely.
right? That's a reason why I would be
Mhm.
particularly interested in pursuing this, right? It's not an excuse, right?
Yes.
Um, so, if you say, well, my wife's relationship with her father is a challenge, okay, that's a challenge. That's something we can all have sympathy for. And of course, for those of you who are younger, because both the caller and I are in our 50s, though he's at the opening end and I'm sort of at the closing end of my 50s, you all don't know what it's like when your parents get old yet. You don't know what it's like. Right. So you get childhood back because people are going to say, my God, this guy's in his 50s and blah, blah, blah. But your parents are old, right? And they're going to start to need resources for health reasons and mobility reasons and perhaps even financial reasons if they don't need that already, right?
Correct.
Right. So parents return to your life in your 50s. They come back in a way that wasn't the
Mhm.
case since you were little. Like even as a teenager, like most teenagers, if you have a bad home, or maybe even if you have a good home, you want to spend a lot of time out there with your peers and your friends and doing teen stuff and not being home, right? So your parents come back in your 50s like they weren't around since you were in your single digits. They're just in your mind because the situation has
Absolutely.
reversed. They are now needy in a way that you were needy when you were a kid. So it's like a mirror image. And again, I don't mean to tell you your life, but I certainly heard a lot of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely correct.
Right. So they're back. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure that your wife's father himself has needs and requirements. And of course, as the woman, she would be more likely to be expected or required to provide all of that.
He recently passed away, um, and, I saw a lot of indifference, from him. He was a yes man. He would just agree with whatever she said and what she thought was best. He didn't have any kind of spine and like say, "No, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't do that."
So he was a manipulator and a liar. Because that's what yes
Absolutely.
people are. They're manipulating and
Yeah.
they're lying. They say they
Yeah.
agree with you when they don't, and they do it in order to
Mhm.
gain control over you and get your acquiescence.
Absolutely.
Okay?
I despise that because if I ask somebody for advice, I want their honest opinion, and I give my honest opinion. I don't. I'm not one to shy away from um, conflict when it's required. I've also, I'm quite center right, conservative person, and I've existed within academia for 30 years. And I might add, without any conflict from my peers either, very, very little. Um, they accept me, they respect me, and they know I'm going to stand up for my colleagues if required, no questions asked, and I pursue the truth. And I welcome criticism. I
Okay,
don't
so
shy away
let's
from people
just in the I
criticizing me.
appreciate that and listen, I mean, my admiration for your career and academic skills is without end or limit. I'm very glad that you're not in the arts, but rather in the sciences because that's the last holdout of Western objective rationalism. But okay, so with regards to your father, he gave you no advice. He married a terrible woman. He's passive. He blamed you for his life's failures, right? Do you know if he's ever
Correct.
done talk therapy?
No,
But he would have been exposed to some kind of therapy because they don't just, just haul you in and throw a helmet on you and run whatever electricity through your frontal lobes, right? That you have to go through some counseling first.
that would have been 50 years ago.
Yeah, but
Never had a
I don't think
serious.
they don't just slap you down. Like there was psychiatry 50 years ago, right? They talk to
I
you.
agree, but we've never had any serious discussions
Mhm.
concerning those matters. He would always say, "Well, we'll discuss it when you're older." When I had questions in my teenage
Okay,
years,
so I need you to start looking at the language that you're using. We never had is as if you're equals. You are not equal to your father. He runs the relationship, he dominates the relationship, he sets the tone for the relationship, and it's almost impossible to talk to a parent about something that parent does not want to talk about.
okay.
So he is in charge. I mean, you are a father. How much does the tail wag the dog? How much are your children in charge of your relationship?
2%
Yeah. I mean, they have
based
influence
on
and you
their
want to listen to
feedback.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, for
But,
sure. We have conversation.
it never goes 50-50. Never.
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 No.
So when you say we've never had, it's like, no, your father has avoided, your father has refused, your father has rejected your legitimate needs for guidance, wisdom, and counsel. How old was he when he turned to Christianity?
Mm. 35, 40 years
Okay.
old?
So that's like 40 years ago, right?
Correct.
All right. So for 40 years, he has known that a father must morally and through wisdom instruct his son, right? Spare the rod
Yes.
being the staff of wisdom, spare the rod, spoil the child. Is it the job of the father to teach his son right from wrong?
Yes.
And
And he abandoned that,
he's known this for 40 years.
and longer, but maybe made more aware by the Christian teachings.
Sure. I mean, every father,
Yes.
if you ask any father, should you teach your children right from wrong? They will say, well, yeah.
It's quite
And
instinctual.
it is. It is. I mean, you don't need to teach a wolf to train its cubs on hunting, right? They just an instinct, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So your father not only refused his most foundational obligation as a father. I mean, there's a couple of fundamental obligations as a father, right? One, you kind of both took a bit of a misstep, if not a landmine, which is to choose a good mother for your children. But the
Mhm.
reason why you ended up choosing a bad mother for your children, if that's the way to characterize it, is because you were untrained. Now, I guess, of course, and this is back to your grandfather dying of the mustard gas or whatever, that your father was not trained and so on. But if we're going to take responsibility, we just have to take responsibility. I mean, If responsibility is
Absolutely.
value, we just have to take it. So,
I take the responsibility for my children.
right. So,
I'm engaging in conversations as these and surrounding myself with productive, um, conscientious, disciplined people who very much care about me. Some of the best allies I've had in my life have been
right.
my colleagues.
Right. So 40 years ago, you were 11 years of age, and this was 10 years before your parents' divorce. So he had a decade of specific instruction on the fact that he needed to teach you about
Mhm.
life. And you said he didn't even talk to you about girls, which would be a big topic in your teenage years. So you must train up your children. Your children will go. Where do your children go morally as a Christian? Where do your children go without instruction?
To the devil.
Yeah. So your father, knowing that without instruction, you were being to be handed over to the devil, declined to
Mhm.
instruct you, knowing that that was, and believing and accepting that this was the inevitable consequences that you would go the way of the devil without instruction. He refused to instruct you. And he
Ab
blamed you for his own life failures,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Where is, and I'm happy to be instructed in this, where is the ambivalence? Where is it like, 50-50, 51-49? Like, where is all this ambivalence coming from?
That's a great question. I'm not exactly
Your
sure.
father.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Your father is a manipulator. He plays the victim. He needs,
He
he needs,
does.
he needs. How dare
Absolutely.
you? You can't abandon me. I'm lonely. I'm whatever it is, like whatever his life circumstance. He's a manipulator. So you
Or
have
he
your
played
natural instincts, right? You have, I mean, you Ulysses, right? On the strapped to the mast of the vessel, right? He wants to survive, but he also wants to dive in and swim to the sirens and die on the rocks. So you have your organic, natural disgust at your father,
absolutely.
and your father finds that massively inconvenient and fights it tooth and nail and manipulates you into still providing him resources.
You know, kind of a woe is me and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah.
when you were talking about so I was talking to two people at the beginning of the convo, just so everybody knows how I listen, right? So I was talking to you, and this is, remember I said it's so tangled and contradictory because you are like two sides of a coin, right? Heads and tails, right? So heads is dad, tails is you, right? No, let's say heads is you because tails is behind you. It's the past. It's your father, right? So heads and tails, right? And
Mhm.
so I wasn't sure which side of the coin I was going to get. So at the beginning, I'm talking to a guy who's giving lots of sympathy and excuses to his father while really mad at his mom, right? So who in your
Yes.
life has sympathy for himself but is mad at your mother?
Father.
Your father. So that's just your father. I'm not even talking to you yet. I'm talking to your
Yes.
dad, right?
And I am angry at him for not protecting me. There's no doubt in that.
Bro, he
Mhm.
didn't not protect you. So not protecting you is you're walking down the street and somehow a pack of wolves escape from the zoo and he runs up a tree. It's not his fault, right? That the wolves are there. He just reacted badly. It's another thing if he drops you in the fucking wolf pen. Your father didn't just
Yes.
fail to protect you. Your father married a woman who was violent and emotionally abusive, or at least emotionally abusive from what you've said.
And
Correct me
violent.
anything I get wrong. So your
She
father
was violent.
married, dated, got engaged to, married, and gave how many children?
One.
Okay, gave
I'm
a
an only
one. That's
child.
it's even more of a challenge, right? So he gave one child to a woman who was far from an ideal mother, and then he kept her there. He kept you in the orbit, right? So he created the situation, gave the woman a child, and kept you there. So that's not just failing to protect you, that is drawing you into and putting you into a situation of danger and then also failing to protect you. But it's more than just a failure, it is engineered.
Yes.
It's one thing if you're the bomb disposal unit and you fail to defuse the bomb. It's another thing if you
Mhm.
set it. So you, and again, as a single child, again,
Right, and or sabotaging someone trying to defuse it.
right, right, but at least that would be obvious, right? I
Mhm.
mean, if you are the real saboteur, what you'd want to do is pretend to be the bomb disposal guy and then say, oh, well, I couldn't
Yeah.
fix it, right? And that way you keep the real bomb disposal guy away and you make sure the bomb goes off, right? Anyway,
Mhm.
so when I'm talking to you, I don't know if I'm talking to you as in the person who was betrayed as a child tragically by the parents, it sounds like. I don't know if I'm talking to you or if I'm talking to your father in you.
Both. I'm sure you're talking to both because
Well,
I have the
that's
conflict
why,
inside of me.
right?
I agree.
And that's
I
why
see that
the
now.
that's why the perspectives flip back and forth without any continuity between them.
Yeah, it's the thought of it's the fear of being of seeing myself as a bad person for abandoning my father.
That's your
That's
father's
the core
implant.
of it.
Yeah, that is your father's
It is.
implant to keep you around.
Mhm.
Because the only other way, what's the only other way he could keep you around?
There isn't one.
There
Being a
is,
decent father.
potentially. What's the only other way he could keep you around?
Being a decent father.
Well, apologizing and
Yeah.
restitution, making amends, validating your experience, going to therapy, apologizing for blaming you for his own failures, apologize for the woman he chose to be the mother, apologize for not being there for you over the last 7 years since your divorce. Just, a groveling, wretched,
Mhm.
supposed to be happening if he's a Christian set of apologies. When
He's
if you become a
also
Christian, you do a sin inventory, don't you? You say, here's the things. I mean, they do it in AA. I'm sure they do it in Christianity too. Here's the
Mhm.
things I've done that are wrong. Here's the amends that I need to make. Here's the sins that I committed. Here's the restitution I need to make. Here's the like the Christianity. You do wrong. Everybody does wrong. And what are you supposed to do with that wrong? You apologize. You seek forgiveness. You make amends. Right?
it's not gonna happen.
No, of course it's not going to happen. What I'm saying is it's not impossible. He's just
No.
And the reason, you see, this is the last thing I want to get across to you, bro. You're harming your father by not demanding that he do better, by giving him resources without him actually maturing to the point
Correct.
where he takes responsibility and apologizes, makes restitution. That's the healing thing, right? So, in a
Yes.
sense, you're kind of the devil with your dad because the devil prevents you from the negative consequences of sin. Why? So you keep sinning.
Mhm.
He wants to numb you to the effects of your sin so you keep sinning. And by enabling your father, by taking his case, by letting your wife talk you into enabling sin, boy, if only that was in the Bible somewhere, that would be a fascinating story, right? But you are not helping your father. This is part of your anger at your father, is to take his side and thus prevent him from experiencing the consequences of his sin. This is a very elegant form of FU to the dad. Oh, that's fine. I'll be around. Yeah, no, I'm not going to condemn you. No, I'm gonna stick around. I'm gonna be like you were a good father. You understand that from a
The
Christian standpoint,
anger
you from a Christian standpoint, you are numbing him so the infection spreads.
a lot of the anger also comes from pretending that we had a relationship.
Sure. And as a kid, listen, as a kid, you did exactly the right thing. As a kid, you maintained your ability to have human connection by pair bonding with the nicest parent, right? Or the least nasty
Mhm.
parent. And so you needed that, especially as a single kid, because you couldn't bond with a sibling, right? And so you had to bond with your father as a kid. Absolutely. Because what else are you going to do? Like have no bonds whatsoever? That's pretty catastrophic for your life as a whole because we're social animals. We need to have the ability to pair bond in order to raise children. So your instincts are like, okay, well, we've got a really shitty meal and we've got an only somewhat shitty meal. Well, we got to eat, so we'll just eat the somewhat shitty meal because the really shitty meal could be fatal, right? So you bond with your dad in your mind, and you make do with scraps, and like with Gollum, you eat the food at the base of the mountain, the uncooked fish and all that sort of stuff, right? So you do all of that, and that makes perfect sense. That's exactly the right thing to do as a kid. Then as an adult, right, you put aside the childish things as we're all supposed to do, and you judge people according to your independence and according to their objective moral actions. And
Mhm.
if you have a father that you wouldn't have as a babysitter, then you have a challenge because it doesn't sound like you'd want either of these people to be babysitting your kids unsupervised. And
No.
so you have to judge according to adult deserts. And justice is to pay people what they owe. If you owe someone $500, pay that money. If someone owes you $500, go collect that money. To pay and collect what you owe is the essence of justice. And if you withhold objective moral judgments from your father, you are harming him. And if you, as a Catholic, believe in the soul, and if you believe in his destination, see, he condemned you to hell in a way by not giving
Yes,
you
he did.
instruction as a teenager, by not
Mhm.
giving him moral
And he never.
instruction and being honest with him where is his soul's destination if he doesn't change.
I feel it's futile. Or maybe I'm afraid I'm just gonna be even more disappointed by some blunt
Okay, I'm
recognition
so
that it's a
sorry.
waste of time.
Catholic, right?
Correct.
Thou shalt not bear. Oh God, I can't remember. How does the rest of that go? Thou shalt not bear false teeth. Thou shalt not bear false teeth. You don't have any false teeth, do you?
Not yet.
Okay, good, good. So you're fine. No. Thou shalt not bear what?
False witness.
Thou shalt not bear false witness. Honor thy mother and thy father. Do we honor people by lying to them?
Um, no.
No. If your kids lie to you, do you feel honored by them?
No, absolutely
Right. So tell
not.
your father the truth and fulfill at least 2 commandments
Okay. I that's
and
that
work
that
to
would
save his soul. Can you save his soul? No. But you can
no.
at least not participate in its damnation.
I mean, I can save mine in the process.
Well, I think it's important that you take some spiritual and moral leadership in your family.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Stefan.
You are very welcome, brother. And again,
You
I
provide
say this with
clarity.
all respect and with absolute sorrow and a big manly bear hug about your childhood and what you were faced with. For those of you who aren't, again, sorry to just make your case to the world, for those of you who aren't only children, you don't know. Now,
Mhm.
I was not an only child, although I did spend some years with my mother alone for a variety of reasons. My brother went to boarding school before I did. My brother was in England for years. So I did spend some years with my mother as an only child. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And it's very easy to fall out of social skills. It's very easy um, to be a sort of little Lord Fauntleroy slave for your parents' needs and preferences, especially if your parents aren't getting along, because then I've just got a whole novel about this with a character called Shane. But so, I would really encourage people to have sympathy when you find out that somebody is from a dysfunctional family and they're an only child. Please, please, please give them some extra care and consideration because it's a burden that if you've not had to carry, and I haven't, right? So not nearly as much as you have. So I just wanted to give you my great
I would
sympathy
have
for that
loved
as
to have
well.
had a sibling
I'm sorry.
because my support I would have loved to have had a brother or sister because it would have widened my support system.
Well, it doesn't always do that. That's part of the fantasy about, it doesn't always do that because your siblings can be corrupt as well. But at least it gives you more horizontal
Mhm.
connections. So you're not just the
Mhm.
shadow cast by your parents alone.
Thank you, Stefan,
You are
for
very welcome.
everything,
What
for
a great
years
chat.
of
And
guidance you've given me.
I really
It's really
appreciate that.
been
And
transformative.
yeah, I really appreciate that. And listen, thank you for your honesty and openness in this conversation. You certainly fulfilled the don't bear false witness as far as this goes, and I really do appreciate that. So, thank you, everyone. Sorry again, we started a little bit late. I will try and get a donor show going tomorrow. And thank you, freedomain.com/donate to help out the show. If these kinds of conversations are of value to you, and I know that they are, then if you could help out the show, again, still trying to recover from more than a half decade of deplatforming, which had a smidge. You really had to squint to see it. Had a smidge of an effect on the old income. So freedomain.com/donate. Lots of love, my friends. Have a glorious day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.